3 years ago, we launched the Great American Comeback. Jobs are booming, incomes are soaring, poverty is plummeting, crime is falling, confidence is surging, and our country is thriving and highly respected again. The years of economic decay are over. The days of our country being used, taken advantage of, and even scorned by other nations are long behind us. Gone too are the broken promises, jobless recoveries, tired platitudes, and constant excuses for the depletion of American wealth, power, and prestige. In just 3 short years, we have shattered the mentality of American decline. We're moving forward at a pace that was unimaginable just a short time ago, and we are never, ever going back. I am thrilled to report to you tonight that our economy is the best it has ever been. Our military is completely rebuilt, with its power being unmatched anywhere in the world, and it's not even close. Our borders are secure, our families are flourishing, our values are renewed, our pride is restored. And for all of these reasons, I say to the people of our great country, and to the members of Congress, the state of our union is stronger than ever before. God bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
The president promised relentless optimism in his remarks tonight.
Well, good evening, everyone. And this is the Maine First podcast. And thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Zach Elfie, Executive Director of Maine First Project, and joining us is one of our board members, James Mosher, President of Maine First Project, Larry Lockman, and Director of Special Projects and Outreach, Honorable Heather Surratt. So this podcast is, this episode, is a pretty cool one. We've had a lot of developments that have have been going on this past couple weeks with the State of the Union and the Nancy the Ripper Pelosi's, ripping up the speech, and what has been going on right next door to Maine. In the New Hampshire primary. So things have been pretty busy this past couple of weeks, and I just wanted to get the take on everyone on what has been going on. James, would you like to start?
Sure. Well, I watched the State of the Union, and I couldn't help but note the contrast between the success of the Trump administration, and the record unemployment levels for everybody across the board, from all the interest groups that the left says that they're about. Trump can say line by line that he's accomplished in 3 years what the Democrats haven't been able to accomplish in decades. And it's quite the contrast between the Obama administration and what he's been able to do in a short amount of time, and to see the vitriol, which is more apparent this time around than even, last year was pretty bad. But this time around, whether it's the economic accomplishments or, there's quite a bit that he can, pretty much pat himself on the back about, they just sat there. And, Nancy Pelosi chewed on her dentures, and of course, you just referenced what she did at the end. It's if we're to gather anything from this, the optics are telling. And of course, you mentioned the Democrat foolishness from Iowa to New Hampshire. It looks like what they have are vapors, So it's quite the contrast.
Since my election, we have created 7 million new jobs, 5 million more than government experts projected during the previous administration. The unemployment rate is the lowest in over half a century. And very incredibly, the average unemployment rate under my administration is lower than any administration in the history of our country. If we hadn't reversed the failed economic policies of the previous administration, the world would not now be witnessing this great economic success. The unemployment rate for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans has reached the lowest levels in history. African American youth unemployment has reached an all-time low. African American poverty has declined to the lowest rate ever recorded. The unemployment rate for women reached the lowest level in almost 70 years, and last year women filled 72% of all new jobs added. The veterans' unemployment rate dropped to a record low. The unemployment rate for disabled Americans has reached an all-time low. Workers without a high school diploma have achieved the lowest unemployment rate recorded in U.S. history. A record number of young Americans are now employed.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's definitely very telling on what's going on. It's one of those things that the vitriol, I think, is getting worse because they know that it's over for them. What say you, Larry?
Well, I guess what struck me more than anything, the optics of it, because the State of the Union is political theater. Just the optics of not just Pelosi, but the rest of the Democrats in the body. We've all heard the expression that in politics, when your opponent is self-destructing, just stand back and get out of the way and let it happen. And that was the sense I had watching this, that they really dropped the mask and showed us who they really are. I mean, I can understand why Democrats didn't get up and applaud and cheer when Rush Limbaugh was awarded the Medal of Freedom. I get that. But my goodness, you can't show just a little bit of respect for the single mom and her daughter who's getting a scholarship to a good school, the veteran being reunited with his wife, the 100-year-old guy, the airman. You can't just stand and maybe applaud politely or maybe not applaud at all, but at least stand and show respect. No, it was just, it still amazes me looking back on it that they are that tone deaf too to what the voters want. I mean, some of the polling afterwards said that upwards of 80% of independent voters liked what they heard in the speech. I mean, the speech itself. And it was an outstanding speech. I mean, and I did read somewhere that Stephen Miller had a major hand in writing the speech. I mean, he is the chief speechwriter, a brilliant kid from Southern California. I think he's in his mid-30s. He was mentored by David Horowitz when he was at Santa Monica High School. So anyhow, those are my thoughts. It was quite a display they put on. They showed us who they are.
No. Heather.
I would say the same thing. I mean, the speech was pure Trump, and the Democrats behaved it's embarrassing if I was a Democrat to see how they behaved.
Under the last administration, more than 10 million people were added to the food stamp rolls. Under my administration, 7 million Americans have come off food stamps and 10 million people have been lifted off of welfare. In 8 years under the last administration, over 300,000 working-age people dropped out of the workforce. In just 3 years of my administration, 3.5 million people, working-age people, have joined the workforce. Since my election, the net worth of the bottom half of wage earners has increased by 47%, 3 times faster than the increase for the top 1%. After decades of flat and falling incomes, wages are rising fast, and wonderfully, they are rising fastest for low-income workers who have seen a 16% pay increase since my election. This is a blue-collar boom.
Paula Sutton, who's down in Florida, has been working at these flea markets, registering people to vote. And Democrats are coming up and sharing their stories. She's asking them, so why are you registering as a Republican now? And, you know, just an average story would be a 72-year-old guy comes up and says, you know, I used to think the Democrats cared about the working people. Now they've just lost their minds. And that's exactly what they look like. Like they've just lost their minds. They're so blinded by hate that they can't respect other people. And that was all on display at the State of the Union. It was just on full display. And there are Democrats out there that are agreeing with Trump, seeing their 401ks doing better, able to get employment with higher wages. They're seeing benefits, and a lot of people, especially business owners, are seeing definitely lower taxes with the tax cuts, and thinking, geez, give the guy a break, give him a chance. And I think this is really going to come back to bite them. Their hyper-partisanship, people don't like that. And Trump is handling himself very well, and these rallies are just amazing, just amazing to have so many people outside in that cold weather in Manchester, New Hampshire, waiting to get in. And then also, once you get inside, just the reports of how happy everyone is.
Hello, Manchester, and I am thrilled to be in the great state of New Hampshire with thousands of hardworking patriots who believe in God, family, and country. Thank you, thank you. But we have more in this arena and outside of this arena than all of the other candidates, meaning the Democrats, put together and multiplied times 5. And the fake news, these guys will never report that. They'll never report it. That is not the sound of 200 people. One of their prime candidates today, they worked a big deal. They had exactly 104 people. And the fake news said, it was a nice crowd, very nice. If I had one empty seat here, one empty seat in this massive arena, they'd say, he didn't sell out. But you know what? We have never had an empty seat from the day your future First Lady and I came down the escalator. Never. And we have the biggest arenas in the country. With your help on November 3rd, we are going to defeat the radical socialist Democrats. We are going to win New Hampshire in a landslide. On Tuesday, I delivered my address on the State of the Union. And I had somebody behind me who was mumbling terribly, mumbling, wah, wah, ho, ah. He was mumbling. Very distracting. Very distracting. No, it was very distracting. I'm speaking and a woman is mumbling terribly behind me, angry. There was a little anger back there. We're the ones should be angry, not them. We're the ones that should be angry. But we proudly declared that we are in the midst of the great American comeback. Our country is stronger today than ever before.
It's just a really uplifting, positive feeling, unifying feeling that Trump is able to garner. And Americans, I think, have been hungry for that for many years now. We just have not had a president that's been able to bring people together that way and feel positive about our future. So I think that State of the Union address just embodied everything we're seeing across the country at the rallies and from the Democrats themselves. And they're making a big mistake to our benefit.
You're full of hate, you can't think straight. It's true.
Yeah.
And they're just consumed by hatred.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, Nancy Pelosi has pretty good political instincts. She wouldn't be where she is today if she didn't. And she's completely deranged now. I mean, part of that obviously was the squad hijacked the entire Democrat caucus, and I think Pelosi knew better than to go down the impeachment road. And I think she warned the squad, this won't end well. But she had no choice. She would have been dethroned as speaker. So it was either follow them or be thrown overboard. So just fascinating to watch.
If you do the comparison, and I took the liberty this afternoon to go back and look at some of Obama's State of the Unions, and then, to up to the point of where we are today, even from Trump's inaugural address. And I wrote down some of his lines, Trump's lines from 2016. He says, "We'll get the job done. We're transferring power from Washington, D.C. and giving it back to you, the people. And from this day forward, it's going to be only America first." And then from last week, his State of the Union, "The years of economic decay are over. Our economy is the best it has ever been. Our military is completely rebuilt. The state of our union is stronger than ever before." Now, I get, Larry's right. This is theater, but the first thing you do is okay, is he right? Is it fact? Do the research, and you can't ignore the economic recovery. And when you compare and contrast what we heard during the Obama years, we started out with these shovel-ready jobs, and then we heard the shovel-ready jobs weren't so shovel-ready. We heard things like, you like your doctor, you can keep your doctor. And yeah, I couldn't help but thinking that the last part of the speech last week, when she ripped up the speech, the metaphor, it caused me to think about, you guys remember, obviously, Jeremiah Wright and his statement about GD America.
When it came to treating the citizens of African descent fairly, America failed. She put them in chains. The government put them on slave quarters, put them on auction blocks, put them in cotton fields, put them in inferior schools, put them in substandard housing, put them in scientific experiments, put them in the lowest paying jobs, put them outside the equal protection of the law, kept them out of their racist bastions of higher education, and locked them into positions of hopelessness and helplessness. The government gives them the drugs, builds bigger prisons, passes a 3-strike law, and then wants us to sing God Bless America. No, no, no. Not God Bless America. God damn America, that's in the Bible, for killing innocent people. God damn America for treating us citizens as less than human. God damn America as long as she tries to act like she is God and she is supreme. The United States government has failed the vast majority of her citizens of African descent.
The optics there, if she's ripping up the speech, that tells you that, okay, all of it, she hates all of it. I disagree. I'm diametrically opposed to all of it. A lot of that speech are planks that the Democrats have been fighting for. The pay gap, bringing this war against poverty since what, Lyndon Johnson? And Trump has accomplished, he's rectified a lot in 3 years. So that what I take away from the Nancy Pelosi's behavior is what they really care about is the reverse. If you take Jeremiah Wright's statement, it's anti-American. Trump, mentions God in his speech. He mentions appreciation for the sanctity of life, for bringing all Americans up. We want prosperity for all, not just certain segments of American society. So I think he's accomplished in just the speech alone. He's been very effective in separating one worldview from another. If we're to learn that much.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with what you just said, James. The problem that we had as the Republican Party is, for the longest time, we were nominating people that were Democrat-light or progressive light.
Kindler and gentler.
Sorry?
Kindler and gentler.
Yes. And if you have a choice between a Coke and a Diet Coke, you're going to choose the Coke. And the same thing is with politics. There needs to be a sharp contrast between both candidates. And Trump is doing that. That's exactly what he's doing. Whether he believes in all of it or not, what he promises, he delivers on. And, or at least, tries his darndest to deliver on. Not that I agree with everything that he's done, because I don't. But for the most part, I do have to respect the fact that what he says, he's been doing. Now, with that said, I think it's also very interesting with the past State of the Union. You guys remember, I forget the congressman's name, that yelled out, "You lie"?
Yeah.
And how everyone was saying, that this guy is, it was untoward, and, he's not even fit for office, and all these different things.
There are also those who claim that our reform efforts would ensure illegal immigrants. This too is false. The reforms I'm proposing would not apply to those who are here illegally. It's not true.
Well, I last night heard from the leadership that they wanted me to contact the White House and state that my statements were inappropriate. I did. I'm very grateful that the White House, in talking with them, they indicated that they appreciated the call and that we needed to have a civil discussion about the healthcare issues, and I certainly agree with that.
Thank you. Do you accept Wilson's apology?
Yes, I do. I'm a big believer that we all make mistakes. He apologized quickly and without equivocation, and I'm appreciative of that.
Mr. Speaker, I think it is clear to the American people that there are far more important issues facing this nation than what we're addressing right now. The President said the time for games is over. I agree with the President. He graciously accepted my apology, and the issue is over.
I think this is a sad day for the House of Representatives. I think that this is nothing more than a partisan stunt aimed at trying to divert people's attention from the real issue that the American people want to talk, and that's talk about health care.
This is not about partisan politics or inappropriate comments. To the contrary, this is about the rules of this House and reprehensible conduct. When one of us, while seated in a formal session, severely violates the rules of this body by shamelessly hurling accusations of mendacity towards the President of these United States, our Commander-in-Chief, and refuses to formally express remorse, we, at a minimum, are duty-bound to express our disapproval.
On this vote, the yeas are 240, the nays are 179, voting present are 5. The resolution is adopted.
Trump was visibly booed, and I saw Democrats standing up and yelling at him
Yeah,
at his speech. And no one is saying anything.
yeah.
No one.
In fact, they said the cameras, it's too bad the cameras weren't turned facing the audience so that the American people could see what Trump was facing in that chamber. The outright disrespect, the heckling, it was awful.
Yeah.
And they don't get called out for it. Yeah.
And the other thing that was interesting that was just briefly mentioned, that whole thing with ripping up, it wasn't that she was upset that he didn't shake her hand. They were pre-ripped because she was so feeble and weak. She couldn't rip up, a few pages by herself. She had to have it pre-ripped beforehand. If that's not premeditated, I don't know what is. So not only was it just, it would be one thing if it was just a raw emotion and, she was just pissed off and ripped it right after the speech. I mean, it's still a crime, but I think people could probably understand, emotions get the better of people.
Yeah.
But this was premeditated. She knew she was going to do it before she even did it. She should be, have at least some type of repercussion for that.
No.
That's just my take.
Well, she is. People are unenrolling from her party.
Good point.
Walk away.
Yeah,
Fair point.
they're walking away.
I still can't get over the single mom with a daughter who's now getting a scholarship to go to a decent school instead of a corrupt, crime-ridden government school. And the Democrats, their attitude is, well, I can't say it, but their attitude toward that mother and her daughter is, go to hell. We don't care.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if you look at some of the articles about that, they are trying to portray the school that she's currently going to as a very good charter school that is publicly funded, but it's a top-notch, one of the top 5 charter schools in the whole state. But what they don't tell you is it may be a very high-functioning charter school, but compared to other schools, it's middle of the pack. It is not a top-notch school compared to all other schools, only compared to charter schools. So there are many articles trying to say that they're puzzled as to why this child was selected and why she's receiving this scholarship. And I don't know all the ins and outs of how she was selected by President Trump, and I believe Betsy DeVos is paying for her tuition out of her own pocket or out of her own budget or something. But it's not accurate to characterize the school as a top-notch charter school. It is a top-notch charter school, but it's not a top-notch school.
You mean to tell me that mother wanted the best for her daughter? Huh.
Yeah, she wanted something better.
Another contrast is you talk about mother-daughter, the mom with the 2-year-old now, but she was 23 weeks old when she was born, the preemie. And, the contrast between Obama administration policy would be late-term abortions. And, of course, the Trump administration's trying to, ban putting in law that'll be banned.
Well, this issue came up at the state level, and I voted no on the late-term abortion ban, not because I don't recognize that these are painful issues, but because I trust women to make these decisions.
There could be no greater contrast to the beautiful image of a mother holding her infant child than the chilling displays our nation saw in recent days. Lawmakers in New York cheered with delight upon the passage of legislation that would allow a baby to be ripped from the mother's womb moments from birth. These are living, feeling, beautiful babies who will never get the chance to share their love and their dreams with the world. And then we had the case of the governor of Virginia, where he stated he would execute a baby after birth. To defend the dignity of every person, I am asking Congress to pass legislation to prohibit the late-term abortion of children who can feel pain in the mother's womb.
And if you juxtapose Obama's opinion on children, what he said about his daughters, that he didn't want his daughters to have to be punished with babies, and Trump's statement during the State of the Union that the appreciation for the sanctity of life, and what did he say? The miracle of life. So it's just still small or not so small achievements, but just simple stands here and there, that all of this gathered together is quite the contrast. The puzzle that you can, or the picture that you can draw between the two administrations is just a stark contrast.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what also I think is kind of interesting, I saw on Fox News, and they kind of made the comparison. When it comes, not that, we are fans of Bernie Sanders, but the media, the way they treated Trump is very similar to how they're treating Bernie Sanders right now, or at least in the past few weeks, where, he's a sexist, all of these different things they're attacking. And it just shows the corrupt nature of the Democrat Party as right now. What do you guys think of what's going on, especially with how things have happened in Iowa and in New Hampshire in the past few weeks?
Well, as someone observed, well, I think Trump made the statement, probably rushed to. These are the Democrats want to run the entire healthcare system. They want to change the climate. And they can't run a stupid caucus. I mean, it's just amazing to think about. How could you screw up something so simple as counting the number of people in a room and writing it down and phoning it in? It does suggest that the Democrat Party establishment wanted to take the victory away from Bernie, because they know that he'll be bad news if he's the nominee. And it just, it was quite a spectacle.
I don't want to throw too many stones, because I was the election warden in 2012 here in Maine, when we had quite the spectacle too. And that was the Ron Paul fiasco with Romney.
Oh, the Republican convention that year.
The Republican convention.
Yeah.
And this day, I still have people commenting on that convention and how terrible the Ron Paul people were. And I try repeatedly to correct them and say the Ron Paul crowd they were not the problem. I was behind the scenes and I know it was the Romney crowd that was the problem.
Was the party establishment and their lawyers. They have about 10 or 12 lawyers.
Yeah, the party establishment was doing everything they frantically could to try to block the Ron Paul supporters from being able to seat any delegates to it was just a nightmare.
My recollection was we stood in line outside. It was just a good thing it wasn't raining because we were outside for a half hour, 45 minutes. It took 2.5 hours to elect the chairman, the presiding officer, the first order of business, and then they demanded a recount. And I remember there a small business owner from
Yeah,
Washington.
they thought they had rigged it.
Yeah, there was a small business owner from Washington County who I had invited. It was his first convention that he'd ever been to. He left, I think, at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He was some ticked off. He said, "I'm a business guy. If this is the way politics is done, I want nothing to do with it. This is just ridiculous, you know." So, but yeah, so we. But you're right. It was the party establishment. It wasn't the Ron Paul people had everything lined up. They had their delegates and
They had they had their counters. They had one for each of the 16 counties they handed me it they provided that within seconds. I walked out the door and asked for it, and they handed me a piece of paper with all 16. That Romney crowd sent me on a goose chase. They had the list the whole time. They accidentally, quote unquote, released some of the ballots ahead of time. Then we had to go to Staples and reprint 3,000 ballots because they were all tainted. And we were supposed to be completely done with every bit of business you could possibly imagine by 9 o'clock at night. And I didn't get home till 2 in the morning. And then I had to turn around and drive back down because we still weren't done counting ballots. I had to be there at 7:30 the next morning. So it was, and I live an hour and a half away.
Speaking of Romney and his role in this impeachment thing, did you see the latest polls from Utah showing that the reality TV guy from New York, Donald Trump, it has higher polling numbers in Mormon, Utah than Mitt Romney does?
Wow.
Think about that.
Yeah.
So
I was not impressed. I sympathize with Bernie, you know. They're doing everything they can to stonewall him.
Oh yeah.
Well, I think Trump summed it up rather succinctly the day after I think it was the day after the State of the Union. They had a celebratory. Whenever the Senate voted for the acquittal, he had a celebratory speech, and he was going, down through Russia collusion and all of it, and he said, this corruption, something to the effect that it's all bullshit. And if you think about it, from the start of it, he campaigned on draining the swamp, and they've had him, they've tried to put his head in a vice from before day one, and he's demonstrated. I mean, every time that you think that they have him, he flips the tables, and that's something, at least in my lifetime, I've never seen. You're used to the candidate, the politician coming out and saying, "Hey, look, I'm sorry, they got me," and some big speech about how he or she was wrong, and every single time he's coming out even stronger than before the whatever issue, whether it's Russia collusion, whether it's Ukrainian thing, immigration, North Korea, the button stuff, even just comparing Obama's handling of Iran and whatever the figure is. We know it's billions of dollars that changed hands, whether it's 151 billion or if it's 1.7, whichever. It's a payoff, to get hostages back, and then you compare Trump's handling. Now Soleimani's dead, drone strike. The guy's, over in the Middle East, pounding his chest, and within days he's gone. You can go down the list of things that the contrast of handling, whether it's healthcare, whether it's the abortion issue, the homosexual agenda, you name it. Trump is definitely exposed, whether it's the media. We don't look at the media the same anymore. We call it fake news. He's exposed the corruption for sure.
What you're saying reminds me of a piece that Daniel Greenfield wrote a couple of weeks after the 26th election. He's one of Horowitz's best writers at Front Page Mag. I'll read a little bit of this. Under the title, Controversy Works. Trump's campaign, again, this is just a couple of weeks after the 2016 election. Trump's campaign was declared dead more often than disco. None of the scandals worked. None of the outrage stopped him. Instead, it helped him win. Every downturn in the polls preceded another upturn. If you're running as a consensus candidate, a scandal can destroy you. But if you're running against the system, then scandals only make you stronger. Each attack on Trump gave him credibility. It defined him as a politician who wasn't part of the system, and none of Trump's critics understood that by attacking him, they were only helping him win. They couldn't stop this compulsive behavior even when it didn't work. Surely, the next scandal was the one that would finally and permanently do Trump in. Even now, they're still thinking this way. Again, this was written in 2016. Traditional campaigns are run by professionals who see their job as avoiding controversy. Candidates are schooled not to offend anyone. But if you don't offend anyone, you also don't inspire anyone. Inspiration without controversy is a fridge magnet. In politics, to inspire, you must be controversial. Controversy made Trump a national and then an international figure. The more the establishment attacked him, the more he was seen as a savior by its enemies. Controversy, more than anything else, made him a change candidate. Trump wasn't Teflon. He didn't survive attacks the way Bill Clinton did. Instead, he thrived on them until he became the voice of millions of angry Americans. Controversy isn't something to be feared, it's something to be embraced. Again, Daniel Greenfield, just a brilliant writer. First place I go every morning is Front Page Mag to see what he's posted there. But he gets it. So
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that says it in a nutshell. And that's the thing I hope Republicans in general realize after this, especially in the state of Maine, where the immigration issue, education issue, they have to realize that they're not going to win on the other side. So to be like a McCain, God rest his soul, he was a war hero, but he wasn't a very good politician or, a good senator or, that type of ilk doesn't serve their purposes. We need to have a sharp contrast between the other side if we're going to make any headway at all. And with that said, where do you think how things are going to play out during this election cycle, Larry? Who do you think is going to be the Democrat nominee first, and second, what do you think will play out in in the general election?
I don't see how they stop burning. And if they do, I mean, it's the Bernie supporters are not going to they're not going to rush to the polls in November if Bernie gets robbed of this again, because they'll see it as a second time, But that will make for an interesting campaign. It's a right-wing populist versus a left-wing populist. But Bernie really is just awful. He's really an evil guy. He really is. His whole background. He's an anti-Semitic Jew. I think it's fair to say. Some of the stuff I've been reading.
I wouldn't disagree with you on
Yeah.
that. Well, I mean, he's a Jew in culture and blood, for sure. But he's a communist, and that's his religion.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. But yeah, no, I think it's going to be one of those things where this election cycle is going to. I know that we always hear this is the most important election in our lifetime.
Well, this time it really is. Yeah.
Every time it's the most important one. But I think that this one in particular, if Bernie is the nominee, is going to be one of those elections that is crucial to the future of our nation. In the sense that we have two sharp contrast candidates. And whatever the voters choose, that's the future of where this country is going. It's not, where it's two different parties. Either we have a out-and-out communist as our president, or we have a true capitalist and keep our capitalistic and conservative ideals. And we actually believe in a sovereign nation, or we believe in a globalist type of, ideal for the world, not only just our country. That's how important this election is. Forget what happens with Congress and everything like that, and if Trump has coattails. When it comes right down to it, this time, if Bernie is the nominee, we're either going to go to way direction on the right, or we're going to go way to the left. It's not going to be one of those things where, things pretty much stay the same. What do you guys say about that?
Now, a second term for Trump is going to be very interesting, isn't it? No, if Bernie wins, it's you saw that Bernie, one of his staffers, thinks that well, the four of us would be in re-education camps.
Or the gulag. Go to the gulag.
Yeah, we'd be off to the gulag. Because they really are, inside every progressive is a totalitarian screaming to get out. And they, I think they've reached the point where they understand that if we keep having free elections and the American people elect guys like Donald Trump, then they're going to have to take drastic action to put an end to that. But,
Heather, what do you think is about all this?
I agree that I think the country is really at a dividing point. I'm looking at these Trump rallies and looking at the thousands of people there, and I wore my Women for Trump pin the whole week down in Florida, and people down there anyway, many were thumbs up with you all the way. They're kind of quiet about it, but they're definitely Trump supporters. I think that Bernie Sanders has he has a solid small group, but I really think they're a minority. I don't see how, and maybe I'm just feeling overly confident, but I see Trump winning.
Bigly.
I think I see him winning with a stronger percentage than I ever thought he might. I think he's got a lot of support. I see that the Democrats are acting very desperate to me. They seem almost frantic as they can see that things they've worked for are being unraveled. It's kind of the same sense I had when LePage won re-election. I mean, they were so horrified the first time he won, that was a fluke. There was absolutely no way he could possibly win the second time. And when he won the second time, they were just so baffled they just couldn't get over it. And he was dismantling things they had spent decades working on through executive order and through other things, because we didn't have the majority. So he had to use other tactics to try to make us government smaller and more limited. He just wouldn't fill open positions. We could never eliminate more than just a few hundred, when he had, I think, almost 2,000 of them vacant, but we could not eliminate them. And so there are things that he tried to do. We tried to support him. He could have done a lot more if he had had the House and the Senate to help him out more than just that first 2 years. And what I'm more worried about is holding the Senate for Trump, because if Trump doesn't have the Senate, he's in big trouble. And I see Susan Collins' race here in Maine. I'm much more concerned about that race than I am Trump. I think she's really in a tough spot. And there are a lot of Republicans that are very upset with her on her consistent pro-choice stance, and they're not willing to look the other way. And we've got ranked choice voting factoring in. So we need to encourage people that may be voting for a third party candidate to make sure they list Susan Collins as their second choice, because the ballots of the loser determine the winner, and I do not want Sarah Gideon to be our next senator.
Yeah.
So I'm very concerned about Susan Collins. I know that Trump has come out and is urging us to support her. She has not accepted his endorsement, and it doesn't matter whether she accepts it or not. It doesn't matter if she throws him under the bus every day of the week and says how much she hates him. It doesn't matter. He has to have the numbers in the Senate. She must get reelected. We must hold that seat.
James, what say you?
Yeah, James, what say you?
Hey, well, thanks for that. It's hard to argue with anything Heather's just said, or Larry for that matter. I did happen to catch some of Glenn Beck's program this morning. Steve Deese was on, and he gave a compelling argument, almost somewhat verbatim as far as Heather's statements on Bernie. Obviously he's got a lot of support in the Northeast, but after that, nationally, there's nothing there. And some of Buttigieg's advancement, and then is it Klobuchar that's second or third now? The thought is, from what I gather, if I'm not mistaken, that Sanders runs out of steam, and that perhaps it's Buttigieg isn't going to make it if he's the candidate. And I don't begin to think that I know how this stuff's going to go, but the Wizards of Smart think that the black vote's going to go to Trump, because they just most of the black voters are traditionalists as far as the Bible believing anti-sodomy crowd, and they're just not going to throw in behind Buttigieg. For those that are behind Buttigieg now, the virtue signaling crowd. So the argument I heard this morning, I think, is a valid one, that Bloomberg is probably the candidate, which is so funny when you think about it. And I'm with Heather on this, that watching the State of the Union, it's hard to not feel a great degree of just self-satisfaction of watching the stoic faces, or just the gloominess, and for those sitting down and can't celebrate any of the accomplishments at all. After having endured 8 years of Obama, and just praying that God would deliver us from some of the destruction, it really is. It feels great to be on the other side of things, and I believe overall that Trump. I can't see Trump losing. I think he's going to gain a significant amount of votes from the last election. And I mean, in anecdotal, I again, to dovetail off of what Heather's already said, I see quite a bit of the MAGA hats. I'm constantly telling people, hey, I like your hat, or I like your shirt. Trump 2020. You know, I made a Walmart a couple weeks ago. The hashtag. So they get they get a certain amount of rewards when you pick up the groceries and you enter the hashtag. Well, the hashtag that time that I went, it was maybe a couple months ago now, was 2020, and I said something off cuff. I said Trump 2020, and they all laughed, and they were in agreement. There was no, it's like, yeah, we patted each other on the back. So it's that kind of stuff, that just the anecdotal stuff, that I really can't see it any other way. So
Yeah.
leading into November, it's Bloom. The general election is going to. My guess it would be Bloomberg. So you got a white billionaire, that's the Democratic candidate, and against Trump, and he takes it handily.
So you think it's going to be Bloomberg is going to?
What the hell do I know? First of all, but yeah, I can't see. I mean, I'm looking at the other candidates.
Yeah.
I don't see it. How strong are? I mean, really, I can't see that even Bernie's got this much fandom. I don't see the. Of course, I'm not a socialist, but even that aside, he just doesn't seem. He's old. He's decrepit old. And
Hey.
I agree with James, though. I think Bloomberg could very well be the final front runner there. And in Scarborough, they have on Route 1 this huge office space they've renovated, and very, very clever positioning, very well done. And somebody I know that lives on the road where this office space is said, "What the heck is going on down there?" Every spot in the parking lot was filled, and cars were lined way back to his house is at the end of the road when there's a golf course at the end. And he walked down with his wife to see what's going on, and he said, "Whoa, it was mobbed. It was jam-packed." And there's a lot of support here in southern Maine for Bloomberg, and a lot of the whole Democrat Party's coming out for him.
So 2 white billionaires in their 70s
yeah,
contesting the president. Well, how's that for diversity?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, how do I put it?
Well, the enthusiasm gap too is amazing. One of the reports was that the venue where Trump had the rally in Manchester was at University of Southern New Hampshire or someplace.
yeah.
Yeah.
All the Democrats candidates were there a week or two ago for a candidate forum, and they couldn't fill the place, and obviously not near the enthusiasm. Everybody I've talked to, there were several legislators who were at the Manchester rally. Adrian Bennett, candidate for Congress. They describe it just absolute electric. It was just electrifying to be in that venue, and that kind of excitement and enthusiasm you don't see at any of the rallies for the Democrats. In fact, I'd heard Bernie drew 3,000 people to a rally was it in Idaho before he left Idaho, or maybe it was in New Hampshire. And Rush reported that, yeah, he got 3,000 people. They had a rock band and an open bar, free booze and a rock band.
Right.
You know,
Yeah. And a popular one. Yeah. It like a mainstream, band. I forget the name of it because I don't really follow pop music these days. But
yeah, well, you ought to be able to get 3,000 people out, free booze and free music. I mean, come on.
I know. Absolutely. Yeah. That's actually pretty similar. I remember back in, I think it was 2008, where Obama went to Germany, and they were saying like 20,000 people were at this, at one of his events.
That's right.
Germany. But yet it was a popular German band that was playing. Is the reason
free
why
beer
everyone showed up. Yeah. It's funny how that works, where they will admit that part, but they won't even admit, the organic amount of people or people that show up organically at a Trump rally.
Yeah.
you know,
People camped out in the rain and snow for 24 hours. I mean, it's just.
The other thing
concert.
Well, the other thing I don't think they factor in is every time they insult Trump, they're insulting each one of us that supports Trump.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And they really don't seem to grasp that.
Or they don't care.
I recall, I recall during the campaign in 2016, that was before I was a Trump supporter. I mean, I was, I held my nose and voted for him because I didn't believe he was going to do what he said he was going to do. But what already was striking to me was the hatred toward Trump was really hatred of the people who supported Trump. That is who they hate. They hate the deplorables.
They hate us.
Yeah.
Bitter clingers, those that cling to their God, their Bible, and their guns. And another reason why I don't think it's Bernie is because I think, and maybe the point was already made about socialism, and I think Steve Deese also mentioned this, that we've had a healthy dose of it, at least as far as the argument is concerned, and we've seen what's happened worldwide, countries like Venezuela, the free stuff may sound appealing to the college kid, but at the end of it all, when the dust settles, I think we've sobered up. And the argument I heard this morning was that Bernie's platform's only going to go so far, as far as his worldview is concerned. And if Bernie were the candidate, I think Trump easily devours him. I mean, it really is going to be fun to watch.
I hope you guys are right. I mean, I'm a natural pessimist. I think that, Trump has a very strong path to victory for sure, just on his record alone. And he's a great candidate. He's very good at this. But the scary thing is people between the age or below 35 years old don't have a negative opinion of socialism. Think about that. So, I mean, it's one of those things where maybe this time around, you guys are right. Trump will win handedly. But he has to win to the point where he can demonstrate how stupid and how illogical and how evil socialism really is. Not that it's just a bad idea and I'm a better candidate.
Right.
But in order to win the future of the trajectory of this country, we need to, enlighten people that didn't live through the Cold War and doesn't know the horrors of socialism and communism. That's how significant this election is. It's not just about winning this election. It's winning the argument for the future of our country. So that's why this is so significant. This gives us conservatives the chance to highlight the evils of socialism. I just hope that the Trump campaign is willing and able to do that in a succinct, clear way.
I'm with you. I agree. And I find it kind of troubling when they're describing any of the Democrat candidates as moderate. None of them, in my opinion, are moderate. They may be communist, socialist, progressive, but none of them are moderate. And that's how the media is portraying some of the candidates. Well, I think Klobuchar is a moderate. What? I just can't even believe they'll make that statement. So they're redefining what moderation is and what a moderate is. I think we need to make sure we don't let them co-opt the words and redefine them. And
they're great at that. They've been great at that for you know, as for 100 years. I mean, that's kind of that you know, they're the evil party, and the Republican Party is the dumb party.
Yep.
That is absolutely true.
And you know, when it comes right down to it, you know, it takes it makes it so it comes upon organizations such as Maine First Project to kind of change the political landscape of an area, which also encompasses the different phraseology of certain things, instead of, you know, using sanctuary cities. You know, we use harboring havens, because that's exactly what it is. We're harboring people that are illegal in this country and shouldn't be here. And you know, we need to do that with every single issue. You know, some of them we have, you know, the phraseology right, but it wasn't because of us. Right to work was done by accident. You know, their you know, phrase against it is so-called right to work. Well, that still helps our cause. I mean, we do have pro-life, and they have pro-choice, but you know, we have to, with other issues, we need to find phrases that are succinct and can outline the drastic difference between what they're saying and what we're saying, instead of just using the same phrases that they're using, because we're not only playing a game with them that it has to do with their rules, but we're playing it in their home field. We're playing it by their rules, and we're playing it 10 points behind every time we do it.
That reminds me too, you had suggested, instead of using the phrase asylum seekers, that we start referring to asylum cheaters.
Exactly.
And people will know what you're talking about, and you've switched it up on them. So
Exactly. They're asylum cheaters. They're cheating the system.
now,
And we have to, and not only do we just use it, we have to constantly use it, just like they do, in every aspect of what we do. All right, guys. Well, thank you very much for you know, being on tonight. And if those of you haven't done it so far, if you wouldn't mind clicking the like button beneath and sharing this video, that helps us out and helps the cause out and helps you know, good Americans and good Mainers out. If you wouldn't mind doing that, and check out our website, www.mainfirstproject.org, and and friend us on Facebook. It'd be much appreciated.
And this is really not a news conference. It's not a speech. It's not anything. It's just we're sort of, it's a celebration, because we have something that just worked out. I mean, it worked out. We went through hell unfairly, did nothing wrong, did nothing wrong. I've done things wrong in my life, I will admit. Not purposely, but I've done things wrong. But this is what the end result is. You could take that home, honey. Maybe we'll frame it. It's the only good headline I've ever had in the Washington Post. I tell you. But every paper is the same. Does anybody have those papers? Does anybody have them? Because they're really like that, so I appreciate that. But some of the people here have been incredible warriors. They're warriors. And there's nothing from a legal standpoint. This is a political thing. And every time I'd say, this is unfair, let's go to court, they say, sir, you can't go to court. This is politics. and we were treated unbelievably unfairly. And you have to understand, we first went through Russia, Russia, Russia. It was all bullshit. We then went through the Mueller report, and they should have come back one day later. They didn't. They came back 2 years later, after lives were ruined, after people went bankrupt, after people lost all their money. People came to Washington to help other people. Bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, I say. They came, 1 or 2 or 3 people in particular, but many people. We had a rough campaign. It was nasty. It was one of the nastiest